Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So warm greetings to everyone, and especially to the members of the Sangha, Venerable Bhikkhus, Theras or Anutheras, Venerable Bhikkhunis, Elder Bhikkhunis, Middle-aged Bhikkhunis, and young new Bhikkhunis, and to all the Upasakas and Upasikas who are here. I see many familiar faces, and familiar faces to all of you. It's nice to see you again. And to those who I'm seeing for the first time, I think we must have good karmic affinities with each other to be here together, to be considering about the Dhamma together, and be gathered together with Dhamma friends. Yeah. So may our good karmic affinities with each other be applied well and lead to good fruit in the path. So although I'm not much of a city bhikkhuni, I mostly live in the forest at Aranya Bodhi, and I was mentioning that I'm really looking forward to going on pilgrimage and being able to see more green, more of the color green, and seeing some of the beautiful and ancient places. I've been in monastic life for 30 years, as Venerable Bhikkhuni Karunika mentioned. And during that time, I've often heard about Sri Lanka's rich heritage. So I understand this is the place where Sanghamitta Theri's stupa exists. This is the country where the Bo tree that she brought is still living. This is the place where the relics of Mahapajapati Gautami Theri are also enshrined, and a place that I've heard where in some of the sacred sites there's no seat, no walkway that hasn't been touched by an arahanta. So this is a very special and a wonderful opportunity for me to be here, kind of like the dream of a lifetime. So I want to thank first the Ajahn Brahm Society of Sri Lanka for all of your wonderful hospitality and kindness and support. My health is not so good, but rather than coming to Sri Lanka and having my health deteriorate in the first week or two, it's been just the opposite. I'm feeling really well for being here, and I want to thank everyone who's been a part of that. This feeling of wellness, in part, is through seeing so many Bodhi trees, because I really love the Bodhi trees. And in the United States, in Northern California, to see a Bodhi tree is so rare, so precious. here I even see the Bodhi trees growing up out of cracks in the buildings, then I want to go pay my homage there. And for images of the Buddha also in the United States, so rare to see the image of a Buddha on the street corner is practically unheard of. And here, as we've been going out to see the Veda Mahataya traditional medical doctor, then on nearly every street corner I see beautiful images of the Buddha, and I want to get out of the car and to go and pay my homage at the feet of each of these Buddha images. So then I just think in my heart my homage to all of them, and also to all of the well-practicing members of the Sangha who live here, because I've heard that there are those who know the Dharma very, very well, and those who are in the caves and forests who are practicing deeply with ever so much dedication and sincerity. And I know I've also met those in the city here too, who also have deeply dedicated hearts of devotion to the sasana, to the Dhamma teaching, and to living it in practice. So this part is most important to my heart, that is the living of the path. So Venerable Bhikkhuni Karunika asked me this morning if I would speak about the role of bhikkhunis in society in the present and ancient times. And the role of the ancient bhikkhunis, or a study of the ancient bhikkhunis, has been one of my special areas of study. In graduate school, I studied comparative Vinaya, particularly Bhikkhuni Vinaya, and then also a subject called World Bhikkhuni Sangha History. So this is something that I know a little bit about. In my earlier monastic life, I didn't hear much about the ancient bhikkhunis. It was only when I went to Thailand, already ordained as a bhikkhuni. At that time, it was so rare. The people there had never seen a bhikkhuni before. Now it's much more common. The last time that I went at the airport, no one mistook me for a bhikkhu. Right away, they knew that I was a bhikkhuni. Everywhere, no one got confused at the woman's restroom. So there's so much more awareness. But the first time that I was there, for the vast majority of monastics, of venerable bhikkhus, and also for the lay people, upasakas and upasikas, they had never seen or met a bhikkhuni before. So I had the good chance to visit meditation monasteries, some of the most famed meditation monasteries, both in the city and the countryside, and to go on a period of charika, called in Thailand tudong, and to meet so many people at the village level who had never seen a bhikkhuni before in their life, and so many women who had never had the chance to offer something personally by hand to a fully ordained member of the Buddhist Sangha. In Thai society, to offer something directly by hand is considered to be very meritorious, but no woman is allowed to do that to a bhikkhu. But they understood quite quickly, with a bhikkhuni, they can do that. So there were some women, both young and old, who then came even with the tears streaming down their faces for the first opportunity to be able to offer something by hand and feel that it was a fully legitimate offering to the, as the Blessed One, as the Buddha said, Sankho Sukheto, which means, or punyaketa, punyaketra, describing the Sangha as the most excellent field of virtue and merit. So you might say, but Thailand has many white-robed nuns. Why would people feel like that? But for people it made a big difference Sometimes, in fact, even although some of the nuns are so dedicated and virtuous, even one of the non-students of one of my teachers, the late Most Venerable Lungta Mahabua, who is a co-disciple of Ajahn Mun together with Ajahn Chah, one of his disciples, he said, had become a Bhikkhuni Arahanta, robed in white, though people, even though they built a stupa, still could not feel, even she became an Arahanta, still could not feel that she was completely legitimate because of not being able to be fully ordained or fully accepted. Upasampada means to be fully accepted into the Sangha. So this is the bit of distortion that then existed in Theravada Buddhism. I think for the Arahanta, we should be able to wholeheartedly pay our full respects without any doubt in our mind, yes? This is one of the reasons actually why I got to know Ajahn Brahm, is because he heard about the story of Lungta Mahabua receiving me as a bhikkhuni at that time in Thailand when that was so rare, even on the live web broadcast. So this was something quite exceptional and unheard of at that time, but he was a greatly revered master, and so that changed the mind of quite a number of people who saw and heard that. So as Venerable Bhikkhuni Karanika said, I've been very fortunate. Like I see the bo tree growing up out of the cracks in the wall, I've been one of those fortunate ones to be able to somehow grow up in the cracks, because for the Bhikkhuni Sasana, there was not a well-tilled field. When I entered into the Sangha, I became an Anagarika first, and then a 10-precept nun before becoming a Samaneri, and then Bhikkhuni. That took almost 10 years to Bhikkhuni ordination. But for me, it seems like a long time, but I was very lucky because it was practically unheard of at that time. Yes? So then, not knowing how I got so lucky, people would ask me, how did you get so lucky? Why are you so fortunate? Why were you able to do this when so many other people weren't able to? Especially you're an American. From the countryside in the United States, no less. How is that possible for you? And then they would say, you must have some kind of special parami. You must have some exceptionally good karma from your past lives that this is possible for you. And indeed, maybe when I become an Arahanta, I'll know the story myself. But somehow I got very lucky, and then I had the thought, something like patidana, to give back, that I received this opportunity, and if my little bo tree can open up the cracks a little more, and some other seed of Bodhi also be able to grow up, and another seed of Bodhi be able to grow up, and another, that those seeds of Bodhi may actually start to make a field where more and more seeds of Bodhi are able to grow and to flourish. Originally for the Sangha, my understanding is that the whole Buddha Sasana is meant to provide the most excellent ground for cultivation and liberation for all of us. This is the purpose of the Buddha Sasana's existence. And we're very fortunate now in this time. 30 years ago when I became an Anagarika, Buddhism wasn't as flourishing as it is now. In fact, at this time now, there's been quite a revival in so many countries where Buddhism had been decimated by war, by politics, by colonialism, almost entirely eradicated in China. Now Buddhism is considered the fastest growing religion in the world because of the revival of Buddhism in China, with such an enormous number of people becoming Buddhist again. In the United States also, in Australia also. I think Buddhism, for some time at least in Australia, is considered the fastest growing religion there. Many thanks to Ajahn Brahm for being such an excellent teacher who really meets people where they are and knows how to bring the Dhamma to people in a happy way. Sukha patipada, not dukkha patipada, yes, through happiness. So I'm realizing that I promised to speak about Buddhism in the ancient times as well. And let me get to doing that. Depending upon your education in Buddhism, for some of the venerables here, maybe what I will say, maybe you will have studied it all already, because mostly I'm going to be speaking just from the Tipitaka, Pali text. But for some of you, it may be that what I have to say you've never heard of before, yes? Or maybe never heard it collected in this kind of way before. First, I'd like to mention actually today is March 1. And March 1 in the United States is the beginning of National Women's History Month. National Women's History Month. So normally if I were in the United States, I would be giving a talk today. As I'm here, I'll keep the tradition. March 1 is also the anniversary of the first Bhikkhuni ordination that happened at Dhammasara Monastery, where Venerable Bhikkhuni Karunika Mehinwangsa is from. Some of you probably heard about the Bhikkhuni ordination that happened in Western Australia that Ajahn Brahm played a big role in, that was very controversial. That was in the year 2009, she says. It's good to have our brain in both places. So that was very controversial, but March 1 was not that time. March 1 was a couple of years later when I came back again and I said, now that things have calmed down a little bit, for those who are aspirants, how about we have an ordination again? Let's not make them wait longer. And this time, let's do it much more peacefully, much more normally, as a move towards normalcy, because the Bhikkhuni ordinations being normal, even being every year, every month, even every week, even every day, is something that would be normal where the Buddha Sasana and the Buddha Chatuparisa, the fourfold community of the Buddha, is flourishing, yes? A very big deal if that's someone with a pure heart going forth. Whenever, wherever that is, because the devas are said to rejoice even high up in the heavenly realms when someone with a pure heart goes forth and has the papaja. I hope that that will be so for Sri Lanka once again. So the role of Bhikkhunis in society in the present and ancient times. Now, this last February full moon, which Poya day was it here? February full moon? Nawam Poya, thank you. So this last February full moon, we celebrated the lunar anniversary of our Bhikkhuni Sangha's founding foremother, Mahapajapati Gautami Therī, her parinibbana. That date actually cannot be found in the Pali text, But in the comparative studies, then we found in the Chinese parallel of the same text that we have in Pali, the Gautami Therī Apadana, Khuddaka Nikaya, we found that the exact date is mentioned 3 months before the Blessed One, the Buddha's own parinibbana. The Pali text and Chinese text are very, very similar. Only a little detail is different. For example, mentioning the date. So this last February full moon, having found this, then we remembered, we recollected the parinibbana of Mahapajapati Gautami, and I wrote a commemorative article for Present magazine. It was called Women of Wisdom, Women of Power. Now, for the contemporary United States, this is a very relevant topic, very much on people's minds. And people are very interested to know in the ancient Buddhist teaching. People have a lot of respect for Buddhism. How did the Buddha himself see women in his dispensation, in his sasana, in his teaching? Yes, even Mahapajapati. Mahapajapati means great leader. Yes, so Mahapajapati Gautami. So I focused on great wisdom, great spiritual power, and great leadership related to Mahapanya Khema, one of the foremost leading disciples of the Buddha, Khema. Many of you may have heard of her. She's called Mahapanya Khema, Khema of great wisdom. And then Upalawana, another of the foremost leading Bhikkhuni disciples of the Buddha, known and commended by the Buddha, praised by the Buddha for her being foremost, most excellent in spiritual power. Yes, I found it very interesting that a woman having great spiritual power in ancient Buddhism was something that wasn't to put her down or wasn't to sideline her. It wasn't treated with fear. Rather, the Buddha said to the women like her, "Welcome, welcome, good woman, come this way." And then, with her awakening, then placed her in an eminent position of leadership of his sasana, of his sangha. In fact, there are several places in the Buddhist text where the Buddha himself advises lay people with regards to their daughters, if they'd like to see a good example, if they'd like a role model, a shining role model, look to Khema, look to Upalawana of great wisdom and great spiritual power as a model for all Buddhist daughters. Yeah? Very interesting. So this is just to get a little bit of a flavor of the sense of what we find in the ancient Buddhist texts. I mention that because I hear from some people, sometimes, the idea that the Buddha, the Blessed One, never wanted to have bhikkhunis, that it was something unwelcome, that it was something fearsome, something terrible. Yes? So I'd just like to take a look now at what the texts say in the Buddha's own words. This is from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, from the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha. Because of all 5 Nikayas, of all 5 of the great books that collect the Sutta Pitaka in the Pali Canon, each one, the Digha Nikaya, has reference to the Bhikkhunis. In example, what I'm about to read now, Majjhima Nikaya also contains reference to the Bhikkhunis and the Bhikkhunis' own teaching, that great teacher's own teaching. Even in that text, if you can read the Pali, you can see the Buddha is comparing her teaching. He's calling her teaching Buddha Vajana. For me, that's very important. Yes? That means her teaching is being completely legitimized. It's being accepted as the Buddha's teaching. Even her listener, then went to check, according to the Pali text, went to check with the Buddha afterwards, explained what had happened, checked with the Buddha, and then checked up on her. That's where we find this. The Buddha mentioned, yes, if you had asked me, I would have answered in the same way. Or that's the way it's translated into English. Said, yes, her words were Buddha Vajana. Means awakened speech, or the words of the Buddha. But you can't find that same teaching anywhere else in the Pali text. She wasn't just repeating it. She said this based upon these unique questions, and her reply were based upon her own experience as an arahanta. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi has called this particular teaching one of the deepest and most profound in the Pali Canon. As Theravada Buddhists, this is our inheritance. This is what we've received from the Buddha. I'd like to go back now. Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya. Samyutta Nikaya also contains a whole book called the Bhikkhuni Samyutta. Each one of the suttas within it are suttas in which the bhikkhuni meets with Mara, meets with death, meets with the, we could say like, enemy of awakening, I don't know, the Buddhist devil. It's very interesting because in that text, Mara is consistently portrayed as a man with gender discrimination. It's very interesting. Yeah? In that text, we don't find the Buddha saying any words of gender discrimination. We don't find any of the Venerable Bhikkhu Sangha saying words of gender discrimination or depreciation. We don't find any of the Bhikkhunis or any of the Buddhist lay people, none of the upasakas or upasikas saying things like this. Rather, those words of gender depreciation are put into the mouth of Mara, the evil one. Yes? It's very interesting. Yeah? Think about what does this mean? People ask, did it really happen? Did Mara really show up and say those things, and then she, being an arahanta, then explained to Mara why his words have no effect on her? Because she's free, because she's a liberated one. She's not going to believe that kind of garbage. Who would take that, yes? Who is already free in their heart and has experienced the Buddha's teaching for themselves. Yeah, so every single one of the stories in the Bhikkhuni Samyutta is the acknowledgement of that bhikkhuni's having overcome such debilitating ideas which hinder and stunt our ability to fully and completely understand, practice, know, and share the Blessed One's most excellent and liberating Dhamma. Yeah. So that's Samyutta Nikaya. Anguttara Nikaya then has the list of 13 eminent bhikkhuni disciples of the Buddha, praising them for all different kinds of qualities. And then Khuddaka Nikaya, we find another 40 stories in the Therī Apadana, including the Parinibbana of Mahapajapati Gotami Therī, 3 months before the Buddha's passing. There even we also find really interesting story of Rahula Mata Bimba Yasodhara, who was the wife of the Buddha and companion over many, many, many past lives, spiritual partner, even according to the text from the time of Dipankara Buddha. Ancient Buddha's time. At that time they met and they made their aspiration to Bodhi together and received prediction of some Bodhi from the ancient Buddha together. Very interesting. This is in the Pali text canon, Khuddaka Nikaya, Yasodhara Therī Apadanaya. Yeah? But I'd like to go back now to the Digha Nikaya, the first book of the Sutta Pitaka, and to look at what we can see about the Buddha's own intention his own stated intention for Bhikkhunis, that is, for female monastics, for female renunciates in his monastic community. So at this time, the Blessed One, this is 3 months before, would be February, the month we just ended, or around this time, in fact. The Blessed One, the Buddha, has just announced shortly before that he will attain parinibbana, coming soon. And there's a dialogue then. So he says, this is the Buddha is being quoted here, I will not attain parinibbana for as long as my bhikkhunis are not yet true disciples, accomplished, disciplined, confident, learned, bearers of the teaching, practicing in conformity with the teaching, correct in their practice, living in conformity with the teaching, and having learned it from their own teacher, they will declare, reveal, make known, set forth, open up, analyze, make plain, after giving a good rebuke with reason to the doctrines of others that have arisen, and teach the miraculous teaching. This is someone else's beautiful translation. But the Buddha is being quoted here. Do you know the time that he's being quoted? I told you that that's 3 months before his parinibbana, but this is actually a quote of something that he said before he even began teaching. This is something that he is supposed to have said to Mara. When Mara came to him after his great awakening, his Sambodhi, and said, why don't you just go to parinibbana now? Enjoy your bliss. No need to bother with this dusty, dirty world. All the people are crazy. Well, maybe he didn't say that exactly, but something like that. Like, don't bring hardship upon yourself by going out to teach. Why not just enjoy your bliss and pass into parinibbana like this? But the Buddha, this quote is from the Buddha stating his intention for his sasana before he ever even began to teach. In the comparative studies we find this also, this story appears not only in the Pali text, but also in the Sanskrit text, also in the Chinese text, also in the Tibetan text. They are in various places passed down in the Buddhist tradition. Yes? So whenever anyone says that the Buddha never intended to have bhikkhunis, I hope that you'll understand that the Buddha himself is supposed to have affirmed as part of his mission statement explicitly to have bhikkhuni disciples who are viyatta, is accomplished and established in the teaching, not just faith followers, not just shadows. Vinita, disciplined, trained, those who have well trained or accomplished the training in themselves. Visarada, confident, knowing how to conduct themselves. Bahusutta, learned, of great learning, of profound knowledge. Dhammadhara, bearers of the teaching, holders of the teaching. This is very important. To be Dhammadhara or Vinayadhara means that you're authenticated as a holder of this tradition, of this lineage. So this is the Buddha's words about his bhikkhuni disciples explicitly. Then Dhammanudhamma Patipanna, practicing in conformity with the Dhamma, with the teaching. Sammici Patipanna, correct in their practice. Anudhamma Chariniyo, living in conformity with the teaching. So not only the major teachings of the Dhamma, but the Anudhamma. This is all the small teachings that are there. Many subsidiary teachings, or say underlying teachings that are there, in addition to the core framework teachings of the path. And then Sakkang Acharyakang Uga Hetwa, having learned it from their own teachers, Achi Kisanti, they will declare Dese santi, they will reveal. Panya pesanti, they will make known. Pata pesanti, they will set forth. Vivari santi, they will open up. Vibhaji santi, they will analyze and explicate. Utta nikari santi, they will make plain. Upannang parapawadang sahadhamena sunikat itang nigahetwa. And even if they encounter people who have wrong ideas about the teaching, they should be qualified to recognize those wrong ideas and make them straight. What's been turned upside down, they should be capable to turn it upright. Of course, the Buddha didn't only mention this about those bhikkhunis who were his heirs and disciples, but also the bhikkhus as well. Also the upasika, savikas as well, that is, the non-monastic householder women disciples of the Buddha, who are truly to be considered savika, disciples of the Buddha. Also upasaka, savaka, those male householders also who are truly disciples of the Buddha. All of these qualities are there for truly being considered so. So this is very important because sometimes, with ignorance, people have all kinds of wrong ideas and people say all kinds of wrong things. Even sometimes those who are in the robes, even sometimes those who call themselves Buddhists, not to mention other people. Yes, just due to ignorance, just due to wrong ideas. One person says one thing and then it gets spread and spread and spread. So hopefully, I wish we're spreading right ideas in accordance with the Dhamma this evening. Because I'm not just saying my own idea here. I have this device in front of me to quote to you precisely from the text. Yes? So at that time, then the Buddha, the Blessed One, is preparing to pass away. And Mara, the evil one, is supposed to have said to him, "But you do have such bhikkhuni disciples now." Now some people have said the bhikkhuni sasana is supposed to have started 5 years after the bhikkhu sasana. I heard some people say sometime that then there was degeneration of the Sangha because of that. However, in the Buddha's own words here, he's acknowledging that he has such excellent disciples to the degree that he feels confident that his inheritance is well invested in them. They have all of the requisites, they have all of the capabilities to hold the teaching. They've understood it, they've penetrated it by view, they've experienced it for themselves, they're able to teach it brilliantly and well, and even able to refute the wrong views that are there. All of these qualities are well established at that time in the Bhikkhuni Sasana. So the Blessed One, the Buddha, then said he had completed his mission. This is important to understand. So I'd like to share with you a little more of the traditions, ancient. The Buddha Vangsa. Now, do you all know the story when the Buddha, after his awakening, returned to his hometown? Returning to his hometown, then he went for Pindapat with the alms bowl, patra, together with his disciples, shocking his father. How can you, a man of noble lineage, a prince in line to be king of our noble lineage, be walking barefoot with the alms bowl, receiving alms from the people? So shocked, felt humiliated, distressed and embarrassed. But he explained, due to his awakening experience, that he was no longer of the Raja Vangsa, no longer with his awakening experience, he no longer identified primarily with the royal lineage. Rather, he claimed himself then to be of the Buddha Vangsa, the lineage of even long line of awakened ones from the past, that he had just rediscovered what they had also discovered, this ancient path of awakening that had become overgrown, but he made his way through the thickets of wrong views, cleared them, opened them wide. So the Buddha Vangsa says that even each one of the Buddhas of the past had the outstanding leading Bhikkhuni disciples. So not only this particular Buddha Sasana in the present time with Bhikkhunis, but also of the past. The Buddha Vangsa then goes on to say also that the Buddha Maitreya will have the leading, excellent, outstanding Bhikkhuni disciples too. Not only the Pali text, although the Pali text is really, I'd say, we find such beautiful, exemplary, inspiring teachings in the Pali text. In the Sanskrit tradition as well, in the Divyavadana, also mentions the Buddha Maitreya having Bhikkhuni disciples too. So the idea is there not only in the Pali text tradition, but also Sanskrit tradition. The Buddha Vangsa even makes predictions about this, yes? So I'd like to go now to the Majjhima Nikaya, then briefly. We had looked at Digha Nikaya, now Majjhima Nikaya. There's a teaching in here I find particularly relevant. This is the Mahavajjhagota Sutta. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 73. In this text, it is mentioned that if in his sasana the Buddha Gautama, and only the Buddha Gautama and the Bhikkhu Sangha were accomplished, had become arahantas, then this sasana, if it didn't also contain accomplished bhikkhunis, would be deficient. So this is one that's really touched my heart, because it mentions that if there's just the Buddha and the Bhikkhu Sangha or Bhikkhu Sasana, but without the Bhikkhuni Sasana, that sasana would be considered deficient. Yes? Goes on to say then, also in Digha Nikaya, Passadika Sutta, very beautiful sutta that I like so much, that the successfulness of the Buddha's teaching can be seen in the presence of there being four assemblies or fourfold community of disciples. And then the Buddha specifically mentions the four assemblies, including senior bhikkhunis, including bhikkhunis of middle standing, including the recently ordained bhikkhunis. So this is specifically mentioned, even down to including those bhikkhunis who are recently ordained. Now, I used to hear from people that one of the big difficulties for the revival of the Theravada Bhikkhuni Sasana is there are no elder bhikkhunis to teach. Yes? So this is a big hurdle, really, to get over. But in the early days, the bhikkhunis learned from the Buddha and from the bhikkhus. And in the meantime, nuns and everyone have also been learning from the bhikkhus. And in the revival of the Theravada Bhikkhuni Sasana, also in the transition, largely those who are the new seminaries and new bhikkhunis have also learned from the great bhikkhu masters. But now, at this time, in fact this year, 2007? No, 2017 already. So 3 decades passed. 1987 is the time that I know my late most venerable preceptor, the Venerable Havampola Ratanasara, from village of Havampola, not far from Colombo, who later came to be appointed by the Malwara chapter as the chief prelate for the Western Hemisphere. It's my own Bhikkhu Upajjhaya. He started to give the seminary Pabaja once again in 1987. I don't know of anyone who did it before that. In my own country, the United States. So amazing. In California, such a surprise. I wouldn't expect that in the United States, in California, that this would be the place for this revival to begin. The first Bhikkhuni ordinations there were in 1988. So this is 30 years ago. My own Bhikkhuni ordination 10 years later, 20 years ago. Those Bhikkhunis are now all Mahatheris. Yes? And the wonderful thing is that among all of them, I don't know anyone who went into monastic life for honor or renown or for name and fame or for some kind of lesser reason. Every single one who I know from that time, with pure heart, with strong dedication to practice and to advance herself, to fully practice Dhamma and Vinaya. Because the Buddha always spoke about Dhamma Vinaya together. Yes? Not only Dhamma, but Dhamma Vinaya. He characterized his teaching as Dhamma Vinaya. So you could say that's like theory and practice together in a way. Even in his final teaching, the Buddha said that he wouldn't appoint an heir, but the Dhamma Vinaya should be held as the teacher. So for myself, I wish to practice that fully, not only as a kind of a not completely legitimate or shadow or this kind of thing. Like even though you're not ordained, just try to practice the best you can. That's good too, yes. But to be able to feel fully authorized, fully supported, fully legitimate on both sides, from the householder's side as well as the monastic's own heart, and with the support of Sangha. I have to tell you now, for being a member of the Sangha, with our growing Bhikkhuni Sangha, the kind of support that this offers as the Bhikkhunis really grow in their wisdom, grow in their practice, the goodness of the container of that field of merit, the merit of that field keeps increasing and increasing. It's been my great joy to see that over the past 3 decades, and especially over the past 2 decades as a bhikkhuni. So I'd like to mention one other thing here, and this is about respect. Many people are familiar with bhikkhunis with regards to Garu Dhammas, or teachings on respect. This is a teaching on respect that I don't know if you've heard before. Teaching on Garu, broached from a slightly different angle in the discourse in Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha, where the Buddha says, let me back up for a moment. This sutta is about conditions that lead to the continuity of the Sangha, or continuity of the sasana, after the Buddha has passed away. And I know for some well-meaning people, this is one of the main concerns about the Bhikkhuni Sasana, is that it would lead to decline rather than to benefit and blessedness. In this sutta, the Buddha is speaking about the conditions that lead to the continuity of the sasana after the Buddha's own parinibbana. So this time now. In this teaching from the Anguttara Nikaya, the 4 assemblies, all 4 are directed, each one of them, to be respectful towards their teacher, that is the Buddha, towards the teaching, that is the Dhamma, towards the community, the Sangha, towards the training, and towards each other. So I find this particularly healthy and wholesome. It makes me breathe a sigh of relief when I read this, because it's just such a healthy and wholesome teaching. And I counter it to some of the other things that I've heard that really feel unhealthy and unwholesome. Not uplifting, not leading in a good way, but putting down, detracting, debilitating. And when I come back to this teaching, I feel now truly, as the Buddha said, it's like lighting a lamp where there had been no light, or for what had been turned upside down, turning it back right side up again. Yes? So, very wonderful, wonderful teaching. Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Fours, also contains the Sobhana Sutta, and in it the Sankha Sobhana Gatha. Now, I particularly like this also because I've heard, as I mentioned in Thailand, sometimes people called the nuns there, even though they wore white, called them the white shadow. And I've heard that in Sri Lanka as well, sometimes for the nuns' situation, it's also been considered in some ways to be dark or characterized like there's some kind of shadow on that. And this is why I wanted to mention this verse particularly, to make our minds very clear and see how to direct our minds as the Buddha himself advised and directed. Because to be a Buddhist, to hold the Buddha's own idea and intention, what could be better than that, yes? So here in the Sankha Sobhana Gatha, or in the Sobhana Sutta, the Buddha is quite explicit with respect to the role to be played by the Bhikkhunis, proclaiming that, again, a Bhikkhuni who is wise, a Bhikkhuni who is disciplined, a Bhikkhuni who is self-confident, who is learned and practices according to the Dhamma, will illuminate the whole community. So I feel like this is something that we very much need, this kind of illumination. I think, hopefully, here in this country, there are still the bhikkhu teachers who offer such illumination. I hope also that there are the really eminent upasakas and upasikas who, by their really deep knowledge of the teaching, by their outstanding conduct, are also such luminaries. And it's my wish, special wish with regards to the revival of the Bhikkhuni Sasana. Actually now, with this 30-year anniversary, I'm turning my mind from renaissance. Renaissance means rebirth or revival, to renaissance. The meaning is different between renaissance and renaissance. Renaissance would mean that we have many such Bhikkhuni Arahantas and luminaries once again. So this is my special wish, having focused on revival for the last few years, that we may actually turn our minds towards supporting the conditions for a renaissance. We have not had such great access to the Dhamma in a very long time. Even in the Buddha's lifetime, people may not have had access to the Dhamma to the extent that we now enjoy via the internet, in many publications, even recently translations into excellent contemporary English, excellent contemporary Sinhala, excellent contemporary Thai, I hope. I would love to see this in excellent contemporary language, that everyone, those who wish, those who aspire, can access for themselves, can practice themselves, and can check and know the fruit in themselves. It's practically unprecedented. And I've heard in Sri Lanka too that the trends in Dhamma teaching have shifted, even in the last decade, from teaching teaching stories in various kinds of ways, to teaching pure Dhamma in easily understandable language to people and young people. I've heard from those who I've met in the last 2 weeks here, young people appreciating that there are the teachers who are speaking to them in a way that they can understand. Not just some partial Dhamma, not just some Dhamma that will only take them a little ways, but really fully expounding and explicating the Buddha's teaching. So wonderful, so excellent. What a boon to be born in this time when this is happening. Let's make good with that. I hope for myself, I pray for myself, let me make good with this most excellent opportunity that we have right now. Let it not be that I'm born in such a fortunate time where the Dhamma is so widely available, where good teachers are alive, where there are so many beautiful marks of the sasana, and I just waste my time, ignore, don't take up the opportunity fully. Oh no, let me not be like that. I take that aspiration, that dedication myself, yes? So, onto the Khuddaka Nikaya, we find the Therigatha. Perhaps many of you have heard of the Therigatha, the verses of the women elders. The Pali text tradition. The Pali text tradition is unique in this regard. Sanskrit texts mention Shtavirigata, used to exist, but it's been lost. No copy has been able to be found anywhere. Chinese texts mention a Bhikkhuni-chan, also means Therigatha. It's been lost, not contained in the canon. Tibetan text also mention. I can't tell you the Tibetan because I don't speak Tibetan. It's my deficiency. Also mention it, but lost. Only the Pali canon, only this particular tradition and heritage contains what is known as the world's oldest known women's religious literature. It's the only canonical text in the world's religions attributed to female authorship that focuses exclusively on women's religious experience. This is our inheritance, being Theravada Buddhists. I feel this is very important. For the ancient teachings that are there, Theravada Buddhism's hallmark is preserving these ancient teachings and also this ancient way of practice based upon these teachings, alive within the sasana, alive within the Sangha. This is our heritage. Sankhamita Teri, my great joy to come to this country, even here in Colombo, Paudaloka, Mawata. How many images of Sankhamita Teri have I seen there? I could never see anything like this in any other country. So encouraging, this beautiful heritage. In fact, Sri Lanka alone has this type of record, this type of heritage. So excellent and encouraging. And Dipawangsa, ancient chronicle, passing down the lamp, yes? Also, only Sri Lanka has such a chronicle like this, that the scholars say, they call it the world's oldest historical chronicle authored by women. It's said to have been authored by the Bhikkhuni Sangha. The Dipawangsa I've been reading recently, and I want to mention in closing. The Dipawangsa mentions many thousands of enlightened and awakened Bhikkhunis here on this island, on the Dhamma island. According to the Dipawangsa, the Bhikkhunis had memorized the entire Vinaya and were teachers of Vinaya. They had memorized and were teachers of the 5 Nikayas and the 7 works of the Abhidhamma. They were Tripitaka, Tara, yes, holders of the entirety of the teaching and of the lineage. I'd like to mention just briefly in closing my wish. My teachers, many of them, have been very strong in Vinaya practice, as well as the practice of the Dhamma and meditation. It's my hope, it's my wish that this tradition of the Bhikkhunis who are strong in Vinaya, mentioned in the Dipavamsa, unique to this country, not only be a heritage of the past, but that this also be revived, so that people can feel comfortable, confident, happy, both the monastics themselves and also all of the householders, upasikas and upasikas, seeing how excellently, how inspiringly their bhikkhunis are practicing. On the way here, the 1-block trip, I saw one bhikkhu, almost like a devaduta, on the side of the road, walking here with an old-style fan, alms bowl over his shoulder. His robes were the color of mine, with sangati folded over the shoulder, walking mindfully, with mindfulness and clear comprehension. This sense of mindfulness, clear comprehension, goodness of discipline radiating from him. Then I thought, this is my aspiration. I hope also to see such bhikkhunis with their feet touching the soil or touching the pavement of this land once again, whether in the forest or whether in the village, in the countryside, or whether here in Colombo, in the Bodhaloka, in front of the Aukana Buddha. I wish, I aspire, I'd like to make the adhitan that the causes and conditions for this to be so, for the sasana and the fourfold community of the Buddha, the way that the Buddha intended it, as radiance, as sobhana, illuminating the Sangha for the entire world, as a refuge for the world, that this be established once again. May we all give whatever we can in terms of the causes and conditions, our moral support, a morsel of food, whatever it may be, to see that this can come into being. And I feel the Dhammadipa, as this island of Sri Lanka was once called, may thoroughly, wholly, completely be a lamp of the Dhamma radiating out to the world.
Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo